Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap all of the wildness of the 2024 IBJJF No-Gi Worlds that took place in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're going to talk about Gordon Ryan, the big video that he put out, basically talking about steroids in the sport. We have a bunch of other stuff to cover this week. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host.
Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. I'm getting over a cold, so if you hear a little on the mic, I apologize. Hopefully we'll be good to go next week, but right now we're dealing with this and trying to, I took enough Dayquil to hopefully get through the show and not have any issues.
You're riding on the bean, as we used to call it.
Riding on the bean? I've never heard that expression.
We used to call it riding on the bean because one of my coworkers back in the day, he took some and he started to hallucinate that he was driving a really big kidney bean and that he was inside of it driving on the highway.
That is a wild story for the intro of the podcast.
So we started calling it riding the bean whenever you...
That
because you
sense.
it kind of distorts your.
Well, I'm not distorted, hopefully, in the show, but New Worlds was wild. Let's get into not the Dayquil that I'm on and onto No-Gi Worlds. Before we get into No-Gi Worlds recap, we're gonna run through mainly the black belt results at the end of the show, and some other results for some other events that happened this weekend. But that is the framework of the show this week. But really. It is going to be a news-heavy show this week. We have a lot of stuff really that's just interesting to talk about that came out in the community. We have Pat Downey's DQ, which we watched, and Pat is very close kind of geographically to us, and a lot of folks that we know train with him. And so we're going to break down sort of exactly what happened. If you don't do a lot of IBJJF, there's a lot of details that I think a lot of the community is missing that I think is very interesting for competing IBJJF and DQing.
And certain specific things that are... that you
Unless
generally
you watch a lot of IBJJF, you wouldn't know what's happening.
Or you've competed in IBJJF, you don't realize that it's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So, I think, weirdly enough, honestly, that was huge news this week. For Pat Downey was competing in blue belt, and it was a whole thing. But I think even bigger news this week is Gordon Ryan put out like almost a 30-minute video. This is where we're going to go first.
Okay.
Gordon Ryan's video is basically, the long and the short of it is, he was like, yeah, I've been doing steroids since I think 2016 or 2018. Somewhere around there, and he kind of gives his reasoning, his rationale.
He said ever since the trials where
him and Garry were in the same weight class.
Yeah, him and Garry were both at 77. So Garry stayed at 77, and he wanted to move to 88, but he was between 180 and 190, but he wanted to be a more solid size.
Mm-hmm. And he's competing in an organization that doesn't do drug testing, so it's legal for him to do that if he wants to. I don't really want to get too bogged down in the show for is it right, is it wrong? The moral dilemma is something that it's not the framework of our show. We do sports coverage. Excitement is what we talk about. We talk about exciting matches, exciting moments. If you in your gym, in your communities, in your organizations want to have the discussion about what is the right thing to do or not, natural versus non, that is not really the discussion that I think we are interested in having here. I think this is just more of I'm the athlete Gordon Ryan competing in his career and some of the information that he put out in that video, because I thought it was really both very insightful and also we all kind of knew that.
Yeah, there wasn't anything that was groundbreaking.
It was all stuff we sort of knew. It just a lot of it just gave us dates on that makes sense, that tracks. We have been covering the sport we've been running the podcast this is episode 370. This is a weekly show. We have never missed a week aside from episode 3, which was on Christmas the first year. And we were like, I'm not sure if we're gonna do this anymore. And then we've been doing the show continuously for more than 7 years. I have been watching jiu-jitsu professionally, the professional side of the scene, for more than 10 years. I remember the debut of Gordon Ryan because we were watching Garry Tonon. I was watching Garry Tonon's super fights as a white belt, when he was competing locally in the New Jersey scene, in my area back then, and there was these rumorings when Garry Tonon was on the Kumite, and this other guy coming up in his gym that he was sort of prodigying Gordon Ryan, and then seeing Gordon Ryan come onto the scene in trials and ADCC. I have watched the entirety of Gordon Ryan's career, and honestly, we've been running the show long enough to have commented on most of it. I've interviewed the guy twice. We're very familiar with the landscape of Gordon Ryan's career. So it was interesting in this kind of big, not expose, but this big kind of release on Gordon's side of hey, here's why I did what I did and the dates I'm doing it. And it was just generally a bunch of information that we all sort of knew, but it was really interesting to kind of have Gordon's reasoning and rationale as an athlete in the situation in a sport that is pretty much in every organization. Actually, every organization that Gordon competes in nowadays is untested.
Yeah.
When he won a IBJJF Worlds in 2018, at that point, it wasn't tested either.
And really, in all honesty, all of them are kind of untested and unregulated, because in IBJJF you get tested, but you know when you're going to get tested, and
he brings it up too.
It's only a couple times a year, so in theory,
and people still pop every other year, and recently every single year, and all the big guys have popped. Like it's sorry, I don't want to cut your point off here.
But it's I'm just saying. It's not like they're showing up at your doorstep like, you are an IBJJF registered black belt. Please pee in this cup now. You know?
It's like, hey, you were here at this big tournament. They did it once with the guys down in Miami, but that was pretty unprecedented.
That's because they ran from finals.
Yeah.
they legitimately were like, well,
and there was cause to suspect.
They were like, well, if we don't compete in finals, then they won't test us, and they just rolled out.
But that's a whole different discussion. When Gordon was competing in this organization, they were not testing. They had a doping policy, but they had no enforcement of it. UFC Fight Pass, Flow Grappling's Who's Number One. What else has Gordon competed on? ADCC. Like, all of these events that he competes in and is the champion in most of them don't test. He's in an untested sport, and so he chooses to go and I think honestly he breaks it down really, really well. From like in the video was like, I wanted to be and I want to be the best athlete I can. I have a very limited career that I can be in my athletic prime. Why wouldn't I do everything to go and be the best in the world? Like, both technically, which we know Gordon is doing, like he's a stickler, and John Danaher is one of like the best technical coaches in the sport's ever seen. That guy trains 7 days a week. You get broken down with injuries. It's tough to train as intense and as hard and as often and as frequently that those guys do. You take steroids so that you can essentially be able to operate at that level, be able to train at that level, honestly, more than anything else. Like, that's the thing. Even when Jeff Glover talked about being on steroids a couple of years, probably like 5+ years ago at this point, he was like, yeah, man, you get beat up training like this.
Yeah.
You keep the wheels on the bus. You have to do something, because the most people, unless you have like the Nick Rodriguez's, which like are just a physical genetic freak, most people, 99% of people can't do it.
And he's also not going 100% all the time with ginormous people his size.
Mm-hmm. And Gordon was a smaller guy. Literally, he gets on steroids to be a bigger guy, to go into the bigger division so that he has more weight, he has more mass, and he can start contending more effectively with these guys in absolutes.
Yeah, and with part of his argument is that he was beating them all in tournaments prior to his PED use, so that his PED use isn't the reason why he's winning. Which that's your decision to make as the listener there. You can make that argument either way.
I think it's interesting, and I do honestly, I kind of really do appreciate, like, Gordon gets a lot of like praise and hate on both sides of the aisle. He's the most polarizing athlete, his biggest athlete in our sport by a pretty significant margin, and he's earned more titles and more defenses of titles than pretty much anyone in the no-gi scene ever. I do really appreciate the honesty in this. I'm not an interview, like to camera piece, because a lot of people in the sport like kind of play pretend that this isn't happening. And I appreciate you have the biggest guy in the sport go, yeah, man, this is what I'm doing. This is what I have been doing. If you look at my wife, I told my wife before we recorded, and I was like, oh yeah, Gordon, admitted that he was taking steroids, and she went,
duh.
My wife comes from a powerlifting background, and she went, yeah, we knew that. You interviewed him at ADCC 2019, and he looked like a different dude, because my wife was the camera holder for that interview I did at Gordon in 20. Actually, both interviews I've done with Gordon. She's the camera person.
Finishers, and his size when he did
he was like
finishers.
170. He's like a beanpole, and he was like a youth then. Yeah, or like what is he? 17 or 19?
You could like thicken up, but still, like,
to the extent that he
there's
did.
Certain muscle groups that you don't generally.
You want those nice capped delts?
Yeah, you don't get that. You don't get those without drugs.
But again, he recognized that physique and appearance and that, like, that's why he had that big photo shoot for 2019 where he was all painted up and he was oiled and like he looked like a superhuman, because branding is a big piece of what has made him the athlete that he was going to be. If you're like kind of a beanpole guy, you're probably not going to reach as large of an audience as if you're like some freak superhuman looking guy. they recognize that, and John Danaher and Garry and Gordon all talk about image management, not infrequently, which is why they're kind of selective what matches they take, and like they all kind of understand what it takes to build a world championship level and caliber team and athlete, and they very much sort of did that. And I mean, Garry, even in interviews back in like 2014 probably and 15, he's talking about Gordon, or like they're talking about the way that they are bringing him up and like the tournaments that they're doing with him, and like they're talking about this brand management, this image management, and also the technique management of improving a guy to that level to go off and do what Gordon has been able to do. So it was really interesting. I don't really think we learned that much, other than it finally goes, thank God we can put this debate to bed.
We learned it when it started.
Yeah,
but
you can also look at
we kind of knew
go like
when it started.
Probably here.
Yeah,
but I also think that like I do like his reasoning. It's like, yeah, man, I want to be the best, and I wanted to be competitive and put my body in the best spot to do that. And like, I appreciate the honesty of the guy, because I think a lot of athletes in the sport like that are on performance enhancing drugs and are pretending like they're not. I appreciate Gordon going, yeah, man, I compete in untested things where this is not illegal to do. This is allowed to do. Why wouldn't I go be the best, strongest in every sport? Like cycling. I was a huge cycling fan growing up. Like I watched the whole Lance saga. Baseball. Like pick every sport has rampant steroid use at the top levels.
And they each have their own like different kind of set of steroids they do. You know,
based on what sports you're going to do.
Yeah, because you're not going to use the same thing as a cycler
or as track and field athlete. Like pick and choose what you want to use that works best for your sport. But it was interesting. I'd be really curious to know like what Stack Crew is running, because I'm just really curious about like just exactly what he has done, because I'm guessing it's a combination of both like physique stuff and also
I bet you within the week the Plates More Dates guy will tell you.
Oh, that'd be really interesting, because I'm just curious.
He normally especially stuff like this, he
keys into it pretty quickly.
He'll have a response for it.
Yeah. I would love him now to do the match with Nicky Rod where they both test and you just see what Gordon, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I really hope, and we kind of talked about this, Mara and I talked about this on the pre-show, and we were kind of bringing up how we wanted to talk about this, because it's big news. I am very curious if Gordon is kind of doing this because he's sick enough that he is probably going to sunset competing. He's not announced for anything. He looked horrifically sick at ADCC. I mean, he looked some of the sickest I have ever seen an athlete look when competing.
Well, and he kind of goes into also his staph addictions. Well, I mean, it is kind of a staph addiction, but his
all the staph he got over in 2018.
Yeah, staph infections and
he was into stomach issues and a bunch of other kind of
other things,
a bunch of career stuff, which is interesting and kind of in retrospective. Again, most of the stuff we sort of knew.
And some of it is he used some bro science that didn't really work, because bro science doesn't always work in every situation.
It's
don't be taking your biome off your skin.
Don't use HiPoCleanse every day.
Yeah.
It's a surgery antiseptic or a surgery cleaner for a reason. But also, don't listen to me. Listen to your doctor. I'm just a dude that does a podcast. So.
And it has a science background.
I have I do science for the government. But not that science, not medical science. So it was interesting. Go listen to it, or you can actually read the transcript on YouTube. It's about a 30-minute video. I think he starts talking about the steroid use about 10 minutes in, which is sort of the piece that I was most interested in, because again, I've watched Gordon's career for literally the entirety of his career.
If you read the transcript, it's all one really big run-on sentence.
Yeah, that's what YouTube transcript does.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Again, I really hope that this spurs what we sort of saw Rich Piana do. Which is a very, very big bodybuilder that was also very different kind of scenarios here. But Rich, I think probably 10, 12 years ago at this point, was one of the first guys in the bodybuilding community to have a big YouTube channel and also publicly sort of talk about what he was taking. It was a huge stigma when he did that. I was like, he admitted it. And it was like, yeah, man, look what he looks like.
Yeah.
And it kind of broke down that stigma in that community a bit more, where guys are much more open for what they're doing, and they can make much more informed. And it's what we've talked about for years on the show, is being able to give young athletes a more informed and educated understanding of what people are doing at the top or not doing it at the top, and not playing pretend with like, hey, I'm not on steroids. I'm not. That's my dog. Sorry, my wife is out, so he's here right now.
And sometimes, the other argument that I hear more often than not is that, they don't mind that people take them. It's the fact that not everybody has the same access to them as others.
Yeah. Or the same risk tolerances or what. And Gordon talks about his longevity versus his lifespan. There's a lot to unpack. Again, I don't want to cut your piece off, so you keep your piece.
No.
It's not my decision. It's your decision. It's your doctor's decision. It's your family's decision. It's your coach's decision. It's the organization that you compete in's decision on if you want to do that or not.
And
that's up to you.
Do you mind killing your sperm count?
There's that too. Yeah, that's my wife. My wife's like, no, you can't until we have a kid. I'm like, okay, well, we'll, I would love to be huge. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
But again, these are discussions.
And everybody that watches us on YouTube, because one day we'll just see Maine
what happened. It's like I'm gonna hold a small child and I'll just be like, why is he huge?
We'll watch Maine get huge on YouTube one day.
A 3-month period, I'm just looking huge. But yeah, again, we're sports analysts. We're commentators. Go have these discussions with your communities and with yourself and with your doctor, but be knowledgeable. And I do really appreciate Gordon like being the biggest athlete in the sport coming out and making this statement, because like most people in most sports don't do this. Yeah. And it really is unprecedented for a guy of this caliber to come out unprompted too. Really, like he's not under testing. He's not.
I think didn't Mikey say something about him recently?
There's been back and forth, but there's not. He's not under pressure of a failed test.
Oh, okay.
Usually, this kind of stuff comes out under pressure of a failed test. And the guy wants to get in front of it.
Yeah.
I appreciate Gordon going, "Hey, man, put the bullshit aside. Yeah. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what it is." It takes something kind of special to do that, and I appreciate that he did that for the sake of the people coming up in the community that looked at him in 2019 and went, wow, like, no, man, he took some serious stuff to get there. He also put in an enormous amount of work, and pick and choose your YouTube video of bodybuilder enters competition and gets choked out by a Mikey Musumeci looking dude. Like, it comes with a huge degree of skill that he has as well, but he backs it up with, phenomenal physique that he got by using drugs that helped him enhance his performance. That's what they do. That's what they're there for. He wanted to be the best he could be, and this is what he did. So it was super interesting to me, but not more so that he came out with it, unless we already knew this. Like we've known this. But it was neat, and I do appreciate that. So I have no other kind of pieces here. I kind of think I've beat this dead horse enough. It was neat. Miranda, have any closing thoughts on the monumental announcement that was kind of like, my wife said, yeah, we knew that.
Yeah.
All right, so
nothing really.
So let's move on to more, not drama.
It was drama.
It was drama. So IBJJF Worlds, again, we'll get into the black belts. We typically don't cover the lower belts on the show, but today's show, it's weird because I think, honestly, this world championship, for this Nogi World Championship for IBJJF, the most interesting thing about it was the lower belts to me.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest news stories here is Pat Downey gets disqualified in his finals match after putting the guy to sleep.
Well, they both got disqualified.
Well, they got in a fight, and it was a whole thing. So, Miranda, you have done a lot of IBJJF and been to a lot of rules meetings. Yeah. Explain exactly what happened here while I deal with the dog that's whining.
So Pat was in his finals match for IBJJF for Nogi Worlds. If you watch the video, and you have to kind of understand a little bit about rules and how the IBJJF rules work. Yeah. So in IBJJF, when you're competing, you cannot talk to the ref. Mm-hmm. You cannot talk to the sidelines. You cannot talk to your opponent.
You can't talk to anyone.
You can't talk to anyone.
You can barely talk to yourself. Like, if you talk to yourself too much, they will get upset and start talking. They'll tell you to stop talking.
They'll say you're like verbally tapping or something.
Yeah. They'll tell you to stop talking. I've seen them do it to guys where it's like, that's weird.
Yeah, you just can't. You can't interact, and you also have to be you have to have a certain amount of sportsmanship.
Yeah, sportsmanlike conduct at all times.
Yeah,
I think is the verbiage, or it's
something
no
like that.
Yeah,
and you can't leave the mat, and there's a couple weird ones. And I will say that sometimes when you get up to black belt adult, they'll let them get away with a little bit more.
They do, and I think I kind of appreciate that because you've earned it.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't. So
and getting a black belt adult championship win is a big deal because you were a champion at that point.
And you get a
little
belt, more celebration.
At blue belt, you are a blue belt champion. You are not a world's champion.
Yeah,
you're blue belt.
You're a blue belt world champion. We can beat this dead horse to death.
Anyway,
I'm gonna go on this tangent right now. Watching all the Instagram bios change to like world champion, it's like, this gets so confusing for us when we do research.
I mean, you can also be a Naga world champion.
I know, but when we do research for the show and you see like ADCC world champion, you're like, who is this? You won an open, or you won a champion, or you won something that was like ADCC, and you see 2 gold medals. You're like, that man is not Bodoni.
Yeah.
You're like, why? It's like, because he won an open in here. And so I love going through all of the lower belt titles because it just makes research for the show incredibly difficult when we're trying to research athletes. So that's my one tangent on
back to
world championships.
Back to Pat. So Pat puts the gentleman to sleep in a
really nifty,
like a Darce anaconda.
But he uses a grip that I really like. The grip that he uses is like a S grip.
Yeah,
it's like and he does it like a wrestler because he rolls under like a partay, or what's that term in wrestling? It's the thing he did to Gordon where he rolls under and rolls through, and it's like it's that move. And he does a Darce like that, and he gets I think 1 or 2 guys at this tournament with that Darce.
Yeah,
very good Darce. Puts the guy to sleep, and then he does exactly what you're supposed to do as an athlete. He goes to his knees for a second. He gets very excited, and
as
you do when you win a blue belt IBJJF world title.
Yeah. And jumps around a little bit and does that, and then he kind of patiently sits down.
Mm-hmm. He gets on his
knee.
Yeah, and he sits there, which is exactly kind of what you're supposed to do.
Yes, but then I didn't see them jump the barrier, but allegedly, what I've read from many things is that 3 gentlemen from his opponent's side, which were of Dagestani descent, were in the black belt area, which is the nice little section of seats that's directly in front of the mat that you're not supposed to be in unless you're a black belt.
Well, unless you're a black belt coach, I think is what it is.
No, you just have to be a registered black belt.
That's
what they check when you
come in. That's what it was. They used it's changed over the years.
Sometimes it's the floor, like the whole floor is just black belts, and sometimes it's that little row. But normally they do the little row. But anyway, so were they black belts? I don't know. I don't know who they were. They come
jumped
in,
the barrier.
They jumped the barrier. Then the one guy keeps on saying, like, you're not a blue, and he starts screaming at him, and you can hear it in the video, which Flo's taking down the video.
Which is really interesting, because usually Flo loves these sort of things.
Yeah.
They love the drama. They love all that information.
Nah, they took it down.
We looked both up Pat Downey, and we looked up the opponent's name. All the other matches are there. That match is now specifically missing, so I am very curious why that match is missing, because this is uncommon for Flo to remove a match like that.
And it could just be that they misspelled both names. But besides that, so you have that situation happen. Then you have the guy come out, and the guy starts saying, like, you're not a blue belt. I have a world-class guy, and blah, 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 and he'll beat your ass and all this shit. And he's talking shit from the sidelines. Pat initially just kind of looks over, and he keeps on doing the sleepy gesture.
Like he puts his hands to his side and he leans over, and he shows him, I put your guy to sleep. Hey man, I put your guy to sleep.
And he's also here or there doing like the throat cut. Yeah. And I'm trying to think who does the throat cut.
A bunch of every other MMA fighter
like
MMA
MMA fighters do that throat.
The pirate throat cut. The thumb across the neck, come across.
He's doing kind of both of those. And he starts talking back. And when he starts talking back, he starts walking towards the gentleman. And he's walking towards him. And you watch the ref kind of go, no, and kind of grab his stomach.
Which is nice, because the ref is trying to stop him from getting disqualified here.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple things. If you exit the mat, you're disqualified. Before a result is read, you are disqualified.
Yes.
If you interact with the sideline there, you can be disqualified. If you start the ref is kind of like being a cool guy and like trying to bring him back in.
He's trying to bring him back in. And if you look on the other side is Cyborg and Monroe, who is his coach here in Baltimore. Yeah. And both of them are saying the same thing. They're saying cut it out. Cut it.
Because Cyborg and Monroe,
they both screaming at him.
They both know that they are very willing. I mean, for reference, we saw Margali get disqualified for this rule in finals versus Lethea Penna when he was yelling at Sanjay and Lovato, and
he didn't yell at them. He gave them the finger.
He gave them the finger, like a gesture, like an unsportsmanlike gesture to the sidelines. Yeah. They disqualified Margali for this. So Cyborg and Monroe are going, hey, they will disqualify you. There's precedent already at the world championship black belt level to disqualify you here. Like, you've got to stop here. They're going to disqualify you.
I personally think right there, they were going to disqualify him from jump. Like, I think action of him going after the guy on the sidelines, even though he didn't initiate it, it was the fact that as a competitor, he should have sat there and not responded.
Well, then you saw the ref pull back, and then you saw Pat keep doing, and you see the ref kind of go, I've done what I can do, and like kind of walk away, and you go, oh, that is where they decided that you were going to be disqualified. The guy wakes up, they go through the whole thing, and then...
Well, the guy wakes up, and then he shakes his hand.
They had the fight. I forgot about that.
And they interact, and then he brings them both up.
The referee brings them over to the side.
And like he's going to give a decision, but then he does the weird thing where he's like talking on the earpiece because at all the majors, they have a ref that's watching the mat. That's in the earpiece.
For your finals matches. For black belts, you'll have 2...
Well, for all matches. They're always there, I think.
They're there, but for black belts, you'll have 3 refs. You'll have 2 corner refs and a center ref.
And they didn't have that.
That they will give a decision at the end of a black belt final match if there is a decision to be made.
Yeah.
For lower belts, below black belt, they typically only have 1 ref, but he has an earpiece. Yeah. And there's another ref or a second watching that match that will tell him information about the match if needed. You see the ref step back, which refs in a lower belt finals match, really in a black belt finals match too.
Especially when you just put the guy out cold.
Yeah.
There shouldn't have been, that ref shouldn't have stepped back to talk to someone.
They will only step back if they're going to waive, if they're going to change points, like waive points back, or render a decision. If they're stepping back and there has been a sub, like there was here, they're doing that to either determine disqualification or some other ruling that they will make, a change ruling that they will make, if like a legal technique or something like that, to do disqualification. So when he steps back, it's like, oh, he's being disqualified already. In that time frame, I think I may have my times wrong. This is when the fight happens?
Well, yeah, he steps back and then...
So Pat's already getting disqualified.
Yeah, when he steps back, they both kind of start talking, and then I don't know who initiated the conversation, but it seems like the guy Pat's competing against. The 2 of them start to have words, and then that's when dude kind of shoves Pat,
punches him or shoves him, hits him.
He shoves him, and then the ref gets in the way, and then he tries to like throw a haymaker over the ref. Yeah, and then the fight. And then they
start fighting, but. Interesting enough.
And the guy's team jumps. The guy's team jumped from the other side, like in, and they started coming. Like, it was going to be an all-out brawl for a second.
But the interesting thing, at least in watching this and like watching it back again, is like, oh, Pat Downey was already getting disqualified.
Yeah, he was already getting
disqualified. Which is, I think, kind of a dumb IBJJF rule. If you have someone yelling from the sides, you as the athlete can't. Like, I understand it.
But you shouldn't. You should have the amount of self-control that you should not respond to it, and then maybe once you step off the mats, then you can go have your fight. Then you can go beat up.
But it was interesting though that he was probably already getting disqualified, and then they both got disqualified and banned or whatever. I'm not sure. Yeah. The funny thing after this.
So then, the dude that started the fight got banned.
Okay.
Pat had said that he, like, from what I saw over the weekend, it said that he was just
disqualified.
Yeah. But then they didn't let him in the next day. When he showed up the next day to watch Monroe's match and some other matches, they wouldn't let him in. Banned. They wouldn't let him into.
Interesting.
They wouldn't let him into the vent.
So not sometimes you can get barred from an event.
Well,
like the rest of the event.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him back into the event.
So that's the saga. The interesting thing about this at the end of all that's interesting because Pat Downey is an interesting character. He's also super local to us. Like, he's a guy that we see in the rooms occasionally. Cyborg gave him his purple belt.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. So you brought up, hey, 2 things. One, isn't Cyborg still banned by IBJJF?
Yeah.
And I thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, he's definitely still banned as a competitor.
Yeah, but not
as a coach. And I think that only bans him as an athlete. He is still obviously able to coach, and I think his papers are still valid. Yeah. Now, IBJJF can do other stuff where they can ban you from, like they've done it before with some other people with some nefarious activities. They can ban you from promoting and ban your credentials from being valid, but due to Cyborg popping and failing the test, they only banned him as an athlete. They didn't ban, like, Fight Sports. They didn't ban his association, his paperwork.
They didn't do like the Globetrotters thing where they just get rid of the whole organization.
The funny thing about this is because technically, and we love technicalities on the show.
Yes,
Pat he got disqualified. He didn't win the world title. He can't compete in IBJJF now as a purple belt because he has been promoted as a purple belt.
But he's not technically.
But he's not a world
in their
champion,
eyes.
so he can't do what Carissa. Oh, give me her name again. I'm gonna blank. on her name.
Cassia
Mora did, and jump to go to the next competition as the new belt because you won.
Well, he said afterwards. He said he'll never do an IBJJF again.
which is understandable. Again, it's probably not his speed for what he is looking for. And then I think there's an article that came out that I saw that it was like he wanted to get a black belt in 2.5 years. And it'd be one of the fastest Americans ever. And there was a picture of Travis Stevens next to him. It was like 18 months. It's like, yeah, well, Travis Stevens is a judo world champion, Olympian. He makes sense. He got his in 18 months, but Pat's also been competing in jiu-jitsu for like 5 years. Like his match with Gordon Ryan at the BJJ Fanatics thing was like 2019.
So it's
and then in Third Coast Grappling in 2021. He's had a bunch of matches. CJI.
So technically, it's 2 years. He has to be 2 years at blue unless he wins worlds.
Yeah.
So
brown is 18. I think purple is.
But he just a year and a half. I just looked.
Okay.
But he just got his blue belt a
like
couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
A week ago or something.
Something like that.
From Monroe. So it
Yeah.
was an interesting saga.
In all honesty, like you can't compete in no-gi for IBJJF as a white belt. So he might have already been registered as a blue belt.
Oh, that's
you know what I mean.
He might have already met technically time and grade because he was a mandatory promote to blue. Oh, that's interesting. Actually,
he is. He's a mandatory
because
blue.
he has wrestling, the level of wrestling experience. He has a world level wrestling experience. So he is unable to compete as a white belt. So he would be blue.
I didn't tell the story before where I was like driving to the gym one day and I get a phone call from Monroe and I'm like, "Hey, Monroe, what's going on?" And he was like, "Miranda, you know the rules for IBJJF." I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I want to make Pat Downey a blue belt. Can I make Pat Downey a blue belt or does he have to register at purple?" And I was like, "No, he can be a blue belt." And then all the shitstorm started. Pat Downey is a blue belt.
One of my favorite things about this show we don't talk about is like we are Miranda and me, specifically of all the guys on the team, and Josh to an extent as well. We are everyone's go-to for, hey, I have this odd rules question and I do not want to read an 100-page rule book. Like probably less nowadays, but I would get ADCC questions not infrequently from like people that you would expect, like, like, why is this guy messaging me? Oh, he has a very specific or like somebody sends me a match like footage like, hey, can you what exactly? I'm like, okay, this is what happened here, and it's just very funny behind. We don't talk about it a lot on the show, but occasionally we get dinged with stuff like this of like,
and it's not
hey,
and I want to start that back with, it's not that I think that he should have competed at blue, but that is IBJJF rules wise.
They call us for like. Hey, Maine and Miranda, what's the rule here? I'm like, this is the exact rule. This is how it's written out. This is exactly how it's laid out.
So anyway,
so that was the Pat Downey story.
I'm thinking he's going to get a letter in the mail from IBJJF saying he's banned permanently.
You have been banned permanently? Really, for that?
Well, for a number of years. Yeah. Because I know a guy that talked shit to one of the refs and got banned for like 18 months or 2 years or something like that. 18
months and 2 year ban is a standard ban. Yeah. Anything longer than that is a pretty...
maybe like 2 years.
2 year ban wouldn't surprise me.
That's not a good look. It's the truth.
You got to compete professionally, man.
Yeah.
That's like, he's a super high level guy. I would love to see him compete at the black belt level in IBJJF if he wanted to do that. I don't want to see him get disqualified like this because it makes this the story as opposed to all the nifty darces that he hit on his way through.
Yeah.
So there's that. Moving on, let's talk about another blue belt that maybe shouldn't be.
You did not spell that right.
Can't spell it. Helen Rulius also wins blue belt worlds, probably very quickly slated for purple as well. Another super high level wrestler.
Yep.
Looked amazing. Looked good. She won.
Coached by Unity.
What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, yep, she's probably going to win. And then she did. Let's see. Other big news for the tournament we have is... anything else on Helen?
Nope.
Looked great. Achilles Rocha, Wagner Rocha's son, got his black belt. Looked phenomenal at brown belt. Dude, Achilles got big.
Who else was at brown belt that looked really good?
Dorian Oliveras.
That's who it was.
Yep. And then Helena Cravar is also talking about competing at brown belt for IBJJF.
Is she a purple now?
I think she's brown. I don't remember. I saw a flow
she can't
headline.
be. She's not old enough, I don't think. I think she's a purple. I thought she was a blue, truthfully, but...
No, she's purple now.
She's purple now.
Now, but we're all kind of... You're meddling at ADCC. Like, let's stop playing pretend Nikki Rod.
The Atos daughter.
Sarah Gaval.
Yeah, she's a brown, right?
She won brown as well. Yep.
Yeah.
This is kind of why, honestly, this whole tournament was, I think, a lot more interesting for the lower belts because you just have a lot of big stories coming up. You have a bunch of big name athletes at purple, brown, going through belts and like having phenomenal performances. This is very much a leader tournament into your first black belt competition. Like Achilles Rocha, now a black belt, looked really good. I want to see him back in trials. Dorian Oliveira has been to ADCC, won ADCC trials, wins brown belt worlds like very quickly, if not promoted to black. I think he might have been promoted as well this weekend to black belt, but probably not going to compete in the gi. Very reasonable to give that guy, that kid, actually, I don't know if you can right now, but like he won a world title in IBJJF.
So she is a purple belt, but look at her outfit. That definitely looks blue to me, but maybe it's not. Maybe that's purple. Doesn't that look blue?
Does look blue, but I think.
But she won purple belt.
She won purple. Yeah,
she won purple belt juvenile.
It's that weird.
Yeah, she lost. Sure, she won at juvenile. It's her last juvenile.
Which is imagine competing against Helena Cravaros at juvenile. You're like, that's not fair.
No, not fair at all.
So yeah, big wins for a lot of the people at the lower belts. Super excited to see them continue to kind of move through and compete at the black belt level. So that's all I got for that, Miranda. Do you want to move into the recap, or am I forgetting anything else fun from the week?
I'm trying to think if there was any other. I mean, there was some fun matches and some of the lead ups to the finals, but we can go into finals and start talking about them. Let's
go into the finals. We want to start with the women or the men, Miranda? What do you want to do here?
We can go men.
Let's go men here. Let's start with Everton Souza defeats Luis Castro.
No, Lucas.
How is Lucas, not Luis? Let me make this text larger so I can actually see. There we go. My eyes are going bad.
Lucas Castro. Mm-hmm. Everton is the returning champion.
This looked like every roosterweight match, except for I thought the heel hook here was really funny at the end. It is an uncommon way we see a heel hook finished. Basically, Everton Souza, in the last 15 seconds of the match, it's 9 minutes and 45 seconds in, grabs an outside heel hook on Lucas. And then to finish it, he goes to the heel hook position on the arm, and then he bridges over and through, but in order to launch his body across on his shoulders, he opens his legs super wide, so there's essentially like no knee control on Lucas Castro.
I was wondering if it was like his outside foot that was on his stomach, if he was like shoving his foot into dude's stomach and then just doing a grippo.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I thought too. It was like Johnny Grippo with like, hey man, if I move quick enough over here and you can't track the angle, it's a super valid way to hit a heel hook. But it is just very uncommon to have someone's legs as open as they were, like as open as Everton's legs here, and still be able to finish the heel hook. The mechanics are good. You're right. He is pushing Lucas away a little bit. Yeah. He's bridged up and over, where it's like he technically actually doesn't need the knee line control if he can beat the angle before Lucas can make the escape, which is obviously what he does, because you see Lucas's second leg is teched down and he's like not in a position to be able to running man out because his hips are too low. So it was, set up really well by Everton, but I just thought it was a really funny finish. We typically don't see heel hooks from the open leg position with no knee control hit, especially at the black belt no-gi world level. It was a neat finish right in the dying seconds of the match, and again, just a neat. I love talking about finishes in finals matches. So anything else on that?
Nope.
We have at light featherweight, we have Zach Kaina. I'm gonna get his name eventually. He's a guy that we remember seeing on ADCC trials on AIGA, and he's a guy that we're like very, very hot on. I think he has another big win as well recently. He beats Marcos Gomez on points. Again, he's got the AOJ style. It was an AOJ on AOJ final match. I do appreciate that they ran it out.
Yeah,
and
they
didn't close.
Yeah,
because I think it makes the finals. It makes it better. I think closeout shouldn't exist. I think it's a really dumb rule, especially in finals matches for like world titles for IBJJF. Next one, we have Cole Abate versus Julian Espinoza. This is a rematch. Thank you, Miranda, for looking the original one up. Cole won the original matchup at Pans via armbar.
Yes, he
and
did.
This one, dude, Cole had a crazy run leading up to this match. He beats Julian Espinoza here by points. I want to talk about some of Cole's earlier matches, unless you want to kind of pause to this one.
Go ahead.
Cole looked really good. He looked really smooth. Go back and watch Cole's match with Gabriel Souza, because it is a really interesting back and forth match, and you can see just the speed of Cole's his no-gi passing, the no-gi Barambolo game, like the counter game. I am really interested to see Cole back in ADCC after this, like, because Cole looked good when we saw Cole in ADCC 2022. When we saw him win trials, his finals match versus Krikorian, he looked really good. That whole trials run for East Coast Trials 2020, 21 or 22, whatever year that was, 21.
Yeah.
He looked really good. Abate looks way better now. Like, he looks more dynamic.
He does.
Which is interesting because he was always pretty dynamic, but he had a little bit like, he was very, almost not patient is the right word, but he would sort of look for his opportunities and then he would take them and win. He had a couple of matches here that looked like gunfights in a really exciting way, in a way that, like, I like to watch jiu-jitsu the way that Cole Abate does it, where it's like, oh yeah, you're not just locking in a position and sitting and hunkering there. You're like moving it, getting your points, getting your advantage, and then moving on to the next piece here. And you're willing to have a dynamic firefight with a guy like Gabriel Souza. It was a really, really fun back and forth match that Cole is able to win, but Cole had a collection of really, really exciting performances over really good opponents in the featherweight division. He wins this. This is his first IBJJF black belt world title. It's no-gi, but still it's extremely impressive, and he looked really phenomenal in his entire run. And I'm happy that he's finally healed up off that injury, and we're not like having a year of no Cole Abate because his foot is broken. So looked phenomenal.
Well, it's also because he's taking care of it.
Yeah,
probably, and not doing what some of the others do.
Hey, my foot's broken. I'm gonna be next week. Like, no, man, I'm gonna take time off, heal my body up,
tape it up, and just see what happens.
We'll talk about that in a bit here. At lightweight, we had Lucas Valente, who is the former champion, also gi champion for IBJJF. He rear naked chokes Johnny Grippo, kind of quickly.
That was not what I expected,
dude. Grippo
looked good.
Grippo looked so good. Grippo was one of the most decorated IBJJF no-gi guys ever. Like, you kind of forget how many pan titles. Like Grippo's a monster in IBJJF no-gi, and he was killing dudes leading up to the finals match.
Yeah.
And then Lucas Valente goes, hey man, I don't want to deal with Johnny Grippo.
Yeah.
Pass, jump back, get the back, rear naked choke, and just knuckles down on it.
If you want to watch Gianna Grippo's matches, he was doing some like crazy like teleports to the back.
Dude.
And one of them that I saw
clean.
was hilarious to watch because you actually saw him reach up behind someone's like neck in the middle of their back, like you're going to grab their gi to like pull them up. And it looks like he almost grabs the rash guard and then he's like, oh shit, I can't do that. And then just pulls
and he comes
back
down. You're like, no-gi, it happens.
Yeah.
Dude, but both these guys look phenomenal. But Grippo, I saw more of Grippo's run throughout the week. Throughout the past couple of days when we were recapping this. And I was really impressed. And Grippo gave an interesting interview as well. He was like, yeah, it was kind of an interview. If you are an athlete, I kind of implore you to listen to it. It was him talking about, like, in the moment, yeah, I'm upset with how this week went because of, like, the finals match.
Yeah.
But I think in retrospect, I will look really positively on this, like, experience because I felt really good throughout the tournament except for that one match. And it was like, yeah, that sucks, but I agree with Grippo. Like, he looked phenomenal in his earlier matches and then had a slight misstep versus Valente, and Valente was able to just, like, put it to him and just finish him very, very quickly. And it's, these things happen as an athlete. Lucas Valente is a world champion. It makes sense that he would, if there's anyone who'd be able to do it to a guy like Grippo, it's Lucas Valente. But it was a fun match. These guys, I think we'll see them against each other again.
Oh, sure.
Next one. Anything else on Grippo?
Nope.
Or Valente?
Nope.
We have a middleweight match with Alexandre de Jesus versus Fabiura Christian. I'm going to get his name eventually. This is advantages. Alexander takes this via advantages. It was a slower pace. It was slower. It's a back and forth match a little bit, but it was slower.
Yeah.
Next match, we have a medium heavyweight final, Francisco Lowe versus Wallison Oliveira. This is Wallison Oliveira by heel hook. It was about 9 minutes of pretty slow match, a big piece on the feet, and then a large piece of Francisco Lowe in Wallison Oliveira's guard. I'm not going to say passing because huge. I was really surprised they didn't get hit with negatives here because there was huge selections of time where they're not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then eventually Francisco Lowe sort of gets up high. He starts to kind of standing pass, and Wallison Oliveira starts to kind of go under. And Wallison Oliveira can lock up a heel hook on the foot that Francisco Lowe has just wrapped
super taped
in what and legitimately has to be an entire roll of athletic tape.
probably.
Like it looks kind of like he almost has like a boot, like a cast boot on it, with how much
he's
tape he
competed
has
so
on
many
it.
times with his feet wrapped up.
We know his knees and his ankles are just destroyed.
Well,
Like,
yeah, ever since the
pick and choose which one, the Tynan one, the Jackson the Guy one,
the Tynan soccer that he did.
But yeah, well, I mean, Walson Oliveira goes, "Hey, I see the legs all wrapped up. Let me go for that leg," which is great decision making.
Earlier on, if you watch some of Francisco Lowe's matches, you watch his passing, and he does an amazing job with some like high step passing and kind of like working at like a middle range to pass. He goes against Thor.
John Blank. Yeah.
And passes him quite a few times.
Yeah.
And just
which I think is partially a stylistic like matchup because we know John was kind of willing to take the pass to get to your legs because as you go to settle, he'll invert and get your leg. But Francisco Love repeatedly just can rack points, which is again you play the game in IBJJF.
Yeah. But so, anyways.
Next one, we have Felipe Costa, Little Orange, defeating Farias.
Ben Lamkinen.
That was good. Costa here gets the head and arm choke from Mount.
Really? I write Little Orange beside his name because
that's his nickname.
It's his nickname, and also that's how I remember that guy. Whenever I say that, I'm like, oh yeah, Little.
I remember him because Zach and I commentated one of his matches, a Copa Elite that he won. He flew in from Brazil. And Dimitri, the guy,
he's not in Brazil. I think he's in. Isn't he at
San Diego? I think he might have flown in from Brazil for it though.
But isn't he at Six Blades?
Yeah, he's Six Blades guy.
So I think he's at headquarters.
I think so.
It's like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I think for the Copa Elite that we commentated for him, he'd flown in. He was like this guy that we didn't really know.
Yeah.
This brown belt from Brazil. This guy is good, and then he just kills everyone. We're like, okay. And Zach and I have again done this a long time, and went, oh, this guy is. And really, really
all
good.
All the Six Blades guys were in front of us when he did his trials, or when he did his championships run.
At ADCC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I very much like watching Felipe Costa because again I remember covering watching people didn't really know how good he was, and we got a chance to see him at brown belt. And this guy's really, really good. Holy crap! And then watching him go to black belt, and then immediately on ramp into these world level wins. Makes a lot of sense. Match was wasn't slower. It was Felipe Costa, on top, passing through the guard. He spends, I think, 4 or 6 minutes in mount here. Just really slowly cooking up, getting high, getting the arms up high. Eventually gets the arm across and then finishes from mount. He uses an interesting grip for the second hand. Typically, guys will kind of lock their hands together. He uses an underhead scoop grip, which is not uncommon. But it is far less common of a grip than the palm to palm or the hand to hand grip. It's he grabs the inside of the lower shoulder to pull in to finish the choke. It's neat. Again, Felipe Costa takes first Nogi world title.
Yep.
On super heavyweight, we have Elder Cruz. Yep.
I'm trying to think if Ferris was the 16th seed. I'm trying to think who it was. I wonder if Ferris, one of the gentlemen, and I think it was Ferris, was not supposed to. Not
supposed to make it this far?
No. He was way.
Oh, sorry. Also speaking of brown belts, Polish Mateus. Not Polish Mateus. Mateusz Maciulewicz also won brown belt worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Which tracks and which makes sense. Yep, he's very, very good. That makes sense that he would win that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if it was him because it wasn't Little Orange.
No, he would have ranked pretty high with how well he'd been doing.
Give me a second to think about it.
Yeah, I'll move on to.
There's definitely somebody else that was not supposed to be making it as far as they did, and they freaking went through everybody, and then they beat Roosevelt Souza, and when they beat Roosevelt Souza, I'm trying to think who it was.
That's fine. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Elder Cruz versus Marcos Carzono. This was a really interesting finish and kind of, I think, tactically a really, really good way for Marcos to deal with Elder Cruz. He just hits a duck under really quickly.
To the back,
gets his points, and then gets 2 points later in the match. But the duck under from the beginning of the match, with how Elder Cruz plays, Elder Cruz we have a lot of tape on him, watching him compete for a long time, for last probably 3 or 4 or 5 years now at this point. Has a pretty wide, heavy stance forward. He tends to reach pretty heavy forward on you to frame you away with his forward side hand, and to keep you at range and distance, to lull you into a pace he wants to lull. If you know he's going to do that, and you know he's going to do that because that's what he always does, you do what Marcos does and just pop the hand up. You can immediately duck him because he's so heavy on that front foot and on leaning forward with the hand. It's, again, a common counter in wrestling to this kind of stance matchup. I'm curious if other people at super heavyweight will be able to emulate this performance, because Elder Cruz historically has always stood like this. Again, you have to get good at the duck under and be able to jump the back, but it was just a really interesting, that is a textbook way of how exactly to deal with that stance matchup for a guy that tends to like to lull you into a long, kind of slower paced match like Elder Cruz. Really, really good game planning here from Marcos, and he's able to take it. He gets the 4 points at the beginning for the standing back take, and then gets 2 more points later in the match for a 6-0 win, and he wins the super heavyweight title.
Yep.
On the ultra heavyweight side, we have Lucas Montevala, which I should know his name because he's a local guy to us. He's a ground control guy, which is local to the Baltimore area, versus Anderson Kawun, and he wins via ref's decision. But in his semifinals match, Lucas actually beat Roosevelt Souza.
Oh, that's the Roosevelt Souza. Okay. So Lucas was the one. Well, but Lucas shouldn't have been. Okay.
No, because he won Pans.
Yeah, I'm combining people's records. Anyway.
This happens a lot for majors.
Yeah.
We're going to run through 30 matches today. It happens sometimes for majors.
There was just a few gentlemen that came up that were not supposed to be in finals, and they all of a sudden appeared. And it was
Downey was a 16 seed too, or 20 seed.
20
I think.
seed.
He was 20 seed. Lucas Lucas local to us, imposing heavyweight, and he wins a ref's decision here. Close match, but he takes the title here, first world title. On the open class,
yes, first worlds, because he won Pans.
He won Pans, so no D, but he didn't win. Yeah, this is the first worlds.
Yes.
Devontae Johnson versus Elder Cruz. Elder Cruz takes him. You saw, I didn't see this, but you saw an earlier match from Devontae Johnson that you think that you were talking about.
No, they
might have changed.
They legitimately said that he hurt his shoulder in the open class, and so he pulled from his weight division.
Okay, that's why he was only in the open,
so that he could put himself into all of his oomph into
I missed it. So I watched everything without commentary. Yeah. So that makes sense here.
Well, I saw it. You
saw the match itself.
Saw the match itself too. But then, and you wonder, but you don't know what people come into. He could have had a blown shoulder before he even, stepped foot on the match. On the mat. On the mat.
Yeah, he got an injury coming into the tournament.
Yeah, so
most guys at the world level do have some kind of injury.
Which is why they take steroids.
Which is why you take stuff. You'll feel better because your body breaks down.
Yeah.
But again, most guys in most sports, especially in combat sports, everyone listen to UFC titles, long-standing title holders talk about man, in this fight I had this thing or this thing. You usually don't get to a camp in combat sports without having an injury, or a shoulder or a finger or a toe, or an elbow is not an uncommon one, or a knee. It's usually a knee.
Dude, why is
some sort of injury? Why,
when I go to Instagram and I put in Bones, because that is his nickname, it comes up as it's a sensitive topic about body imagery.
No idea.
Why is it?
I don't use Instagram much anymore.
I use it to find people because most people post their shit on Instagram.
So Devontae had a shoulder injury coming into this matchup from an earlier matchup in the week, and Elder Cruz is able to win. I think we've seen these guys go against each other a couple of times before. It has gone back and forth. It is typically a slower match, primarily on the feet, with a lot of, again, that historic Elder Cruz stance of heavy fencing. Devontae Johnson, Elder Cruz, and Pedro Mourinho all play a really similar stylistic game on the feet, where they're going to frame you out. They have good enough wrestling to be really dangerous late, and they can kind of cook you into mistakes. And unless you are at the elite level, you will usually at some point walk into a mistake. But when you have two of these guys go against each other, sometimes it can go the other way. Elder Cruz takes this. He's now a 2-time world champion in the open class. I think, was the last one open as well? I thought he was weight class last time.
No, I think he was weight class.
Yeah. So 2-time IBJJF Nogi world champion, and he takes that. Again, hope Devontae heals up so that we can see him in the future. But that does it for the men. Let us move on to the women's division. I think there's some interesting storylines here to talk about. In the Roosterweight division, we had Jennifer Aquino. I have that wrong in my head.
What?
She beat Mariana Roslet by armbar.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I must have.
No,
taken out.
it's just me.
No, it just says armbar, but it doesn't say who armbarred.
Nah.
I must have erased the name.
These notes happen.
I will say that it is a very long day if you start with semis and then you watch the semifinals and then you watch the finals.
The pacing for IBJJF Worlds and all pretty much IBJJF.
If you're
major
there,
events,
it's a little bit easier because you can watch everything, so it doesn't seem like it's such a long period of time. But when you're watching it from home, it definitely
some of the most oppressively difficult events to watch because they are just black matches are 10 minutes, and if you're watching. You're watching 18 divisions in total.
And then after they do it, so they do semis, and then they do third and fourth, right? Mm-hmm. After semis.
So you have 10-minute match for semis. Then you have 10-minute match for third and fourth. Then 10-minute match for finals. You have 40 minutes per division, and then you have break times. So it's like an hour per division.
But
almost.
but they don't do them back to back. They do semis and third and fourth, and then they.
But in aggregate, you have it is a very look at all the match.
And then they do all finals in a row.
Yeah.
But after somebody wins their match, they have to go get their picture.
They do the award ceremony first.
Yeah.
For everything, and they show that. It's a very long.
Well, they don't
event
really
to watch.
always show it either, which is
sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, it's freaking weird. Anyway.
Oh, one piece to bring up because I do think it is worth mentioning. I finally, Flow changed the overlay where I can see the fucking names.
If they have a name that's like 20 syllables long,
look,
it like squishes it.
That's fine. At least they show me the name.
Yeah.
Credit where credit is due. We have been complaining about this for nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
They finally, for a major, are using an overlay where I can actually see the athlete's name. Credit where credit is due. It made going and finding athletes in these matches easier,
Except for sometimes it said it would put their name up and then it would say insert team name.
Yeah. Again, the broadcast is still leaves so much to be desired. Same with the coverage for it for a premium service, but we're at least moving in the right direction because I can see the athlete's full name on the broadcast, not an abbreviated name. So finally, hopefully listen to the community and using that overlay. I hope I never see that old overlay again because it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Next on, light featherweight.
No, did you say Jennifer won by armbar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really quickly, in about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Next match, we have Maisa Bastos versus Sofia Casella. Bastos is 10-time world champion, 5 times in the gi, 5 times in the no-gi.
3 times in the no-gi.
3 times in the no-gi. I thought she was
5 times in the gi, 3 times in the no-gi.
I thought she posted it was 5 and 5.
That's what they said on the.
I think she posted 5 and 5, but I might have saw the 3 wrong.
But
regardless,
maybe it's colored belts. This was all at black.
Maybe that's what it was. See, this is why I hate including those because it just gets so confusing to follow. We care about black belt world titles. That's the thing that matters.
She says 10 times, 5 no-gi, 5 gi.
That's what she said. Yeah, and that's why I was confused.
Oh, okay. Well,
regardless, also the one championship title holder for atom weight.
Yeah.
Like Maisa Bastos is one of the best women in the world. I only want to see her compete against Adele Florino, but I think she's a little smaller than Adele. Regardless, looked amazing here. Wins 20-0, dominates most of the match from mount.
Adele won under 55, and 55 is 120 pounds. And
I think they went against each other.
Yeah.
I think she beat Maisa, or someone in that bracket beat Maisa because Maisa was there.
Yeah, let me look.
Regardless, Bastos looks phenomenal. One of the best women, if not the best woman, obviously the best woman at the weight class consistently. Just super hard to beat. Phenomenally difficult to beat. Daniel Kelly couldn't beat her twice, back-to-back rematches.
They went against each other in Brazilios at ADCC Worlds.
Yeah. It was ADCC Worlds.
Yeah.
I thought so, yeah, and they'll beat her there. Again, I want to see a run back. Bastos is super dominant. Adele was there. I want to see the rematch.
Yeah.
Next one, we have featherweight. We have Amanda Canuto, who's the defending champion, versus Cassia Mora. Cassia Mora has had the craziest 2024
Yes.
of maybe not any athlete, but definitely any female colored belt athlete by far. 2023, she was a purple belt. She did something that I don't recall anyone ever doing, which is doing a half cycle.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'd actually call it. We don't have a term for this. We talk about it whenever we cover her, but I'll bring it up one more time because it's really interesting. In IBJJF, they treat their gi and their no gi world championships as world titles because they're both world titles in the rule set that is available. If you win a world title in IBJJF at the lower belts, you are able to then move to the next belt.
Is it a major or is it a world?
Worlds. It's worlds.
Okay.
You win a worlds, you win to the next belt. Kasia went gi worlds win, no gi worlds win, because typically world championships in the gi once a year, no gi once a year for that year, that season, as IBJJF puts it. So you can't win 2 gi worlds in a year. So typically you win blue belt worlds in the gi. Next year you win purple. Next year it's a multiple year process. Kasia went, cool. The rules apply for gi and no gi. Awesome. I'm gonna win. I forget what order she started in.
Yeah.
Gi, then cool. 6 months later, no gi. 6 months later, gi. It's like she just won, and every 6 months would just work to the next belt because she was a world champion.
Yep.
At the lower belt, was able to move to the next belt, and in like 18 months, she went from blue to black belt, and then now wins another black belt. Sorry, wins her first black belt world title in 1 year.
And she was, pretty dominant.
Yeah, points advantage here for the winning, but still, like, her run, I think, is more. And the finals is finals. Her run here is phenomenally interesting because you always kind of wonder if someone could ever do it because it's always been the rule, like, on paper. Kasia did it.
Yeah.
That is the niftiest shit ever. That's one of the neatest things that happened this entire year. I do not know if we will see an athlete at the lower belts be able to do that again. It was a blue belt like a year ago less than 2 years ago. She was a blue belt. She now has an adult black belt world title. Yeah. In IBJJF. No-gi.
Well, and generally they can get up to black belt, but normally like black belt, then they kind of
you hit a wall where it's like, oh, this is suddenly very hard. Why? It's like because you go from competing against people at similar skill to a black belt woman who has been a black belt woman competing for 8 years at the black belt level. That's usually a pretty insurmountable jump. Not all the time, but you're going to run into those folks in your division. It's I cannot express how wildly impressive her 2024 is. Definitely puts her in contention for a Grappler of the Year just for that run alone. But we'll talk about that probably next week. Super impressive. Next one. We had Brianna St. Marie defeating Morgan Black via guillotine. This was I'm gonna say textbook.
It was.
This is textbook. You have Mo Black, great shot in. Brianna St. Marie going guillotine time.
Yeah.
This is my game. I love this is legitimately in jiu-jitsu my favorite thing to see because this is what I love to do more than anything else is jump the gilly.
And it's almost one of those things that most coaches tell you not to do.
All coaches. Any good coach should tell you not to do
not
this.
Not to grab a guillotine off a double because they're like, you're just going to be pulling your back.
You're just going to pull your back and they're going to pull their head out and that. Yeah. But if you believe, Miranda, you believe real hard and you're also as good as
I'm also the
opposite.
I believe the opposite way of my double is better than your guillotine.
I believe that my guillotine is phenomenal. I will take heads off.
I know. I don't shoot on you. There's reason.
A lot of people don't. I love it. It brings me great joy every time I see it to watch someone. Maybe Mo Black's double is very good here, by the way. But Brianna has a phenomenal close guard game, and she has your head. Phenomenal guillotine game. Just pop, finishes an arm and guillotine.
And it's fast.
It's fast, and that's it. Positioning is phenomenal. This is how to counter a double leg with a guillotine. Brianna St. Marie's probably not going to get the credit she needs here. This is not super easy to do. It's easy to jump it here.
Yeah.
It is not super easy to finish it in the way that she does because she's actually a little higher up on the neck and the head than you think that she would be because she doesn't get folded down in the double. She's able to put Mo underneath her more in the double. It's a little difference that you'll see for people that historically are able to finish guillotines off of shots versus people who are not. It's the body positioning and the shoulder positioning to get out of that out of that double and that shot. So I love it. It was like the first exchange of the match almost.
Yeah.
Very, very quick. Anything else on that?
Nope.
I got very excited. Next one, we have Elizabeth Clay versus Nadia Franklin. Elizabeth Clay takes this one on points. She had a pretty good performance overall in the weight and in
all of Elizabeth Clay's matches up to this one were very short.
Yeah.
Like super short.
Dude, Clay is really, really good IBJJF no-gi. Like she has been since the color belt, since purple belt, from blue belt actually.
Until she did absolute against Brianna St-Marie.
Well, there's that. There's that too. But Clay looked very, very good. I brought her adorable baby there. She posted some great pictures this week of her with like her camp and her baby and her small baby. And I was like, good for you. It was very, very, very cute. Next on medium heavyweight, we have Salah Samola defeating Caitlin Hughes.
No, Huggins.
Huggins. I don't know how I got Hughes out of that.
That's Murdoch's girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
From PSF.
Pedigo. Oh yeah. So I've spoken to them.
She posted against something. She posted something.
Wife or girlfriend?
Could be wife.
I think wife.
Could be wife by now. But she posted something recently because she's 36. She's a master competitor.
Good for her. I had a really interesting conversation with them. I was the head judge for one of Murdoch's matches at ADCC in one of the opens. I think it was Dallas. It might have been. That was one of the ones I did. He had a really, really close match with a guy, and I scored it for him because of a really, really late shot to guard pull from his opponent, and his opponent got upset with me because it was a pull, and it was a whole big controversy. But him and his brother and his wife, Caitlin, were there, and I was like, hey, here's what happened. Here's why it was scored for you. Like, had that not happened, you probably would not have won this match.
Yeah.
But he pulled here, and this is why you won. Because that's one of the things that Mo had us do is like, hey, man, if there's controversy, like, talk to the athletes. Like, give them the courtesy and the respect to explain what is happening and why it has occurred that way. And the other people had left because they were upset, and I took the time to explain to them exactly basically why he had won that match. I don't think I was telling him he was losing, but I was like, yep, that's why it was scored for you here. You know, you didn't win. You won on this negative because they pulled. Like, this is what we scored it as. Yeah. And they were very, very pleasant in the explanation. Understood. I was like, cool, thank you. And they thanked me for like taking the time to explain exactly what had happened in that match. So really cool to see. Wait, so does Salah win this or does Hughes get it?
Salah wins it because Huggins gets DQ'd because she gets stuck in Salah's closed guard and she can't get out.
And sometimes
I feel for her because I've had that situation happen. I've never gotten DQ'd because I will always try to give you the arm bar and then think I can pass your arm bar faster than you can arm bar.
You gotta play the game. I love it.
And that's why my shoulders suck.
Yeah, this is one thing, again, an unfortunate kind of thing in IBJJF. The 4 penalties for DQ. I understand. I don't disagree with it.
Well, I think Caitlin needed to open up, and she didn't. And I understand why she didn't, because at black belt, any mistake is
you get taken home. It's reasonable. I just wish that one of the historic problems that we have had with IBJJF is the match pacing is very slow, and the penalties I don't think do enough to incentivize activity, because we see DQ penalties almost every major now. Like, they're not infrequent. Like, I would love to see different ways to incentivize the athletes to continue and push the action.
It is your fourth.
It is. No, I agree.
You know?
I really like what ADCC does, where it's the person winning the match has the incentive to move.
Yeah.
Because Caitlin here is on top, not doing enough to open the guard. Like, rightfully so, being given passivities for this, but once you have your third, you give 2 points to your opponent. Well, then Salah's winning. I think it's now their onus to do something. And IBJJF they don't change the responsibility and onus. It's all positional based. And I wish that they would have that, because then it was like, cool. So Caitlin's not doing anything. Now Salah has to do much more.
Yeah, but now you have, what it does is it allows guard players to pull you into their guard, and then really not have
to play a slower game.
Yeah, and not have to do anything.
Mm-hmm. So it's one of the quirks of IBJJF. Again, it happens. I don't like to see DQs in finals. I don't like to see closeouts in finals. I just think it kind of like it sullies the win.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to take anything away from Salah here. Very legitimate way to win in IBJJF. She knows the rules. She plays it well. It's just, again, it's always unfortunate to kind of like we're talking about more of like the functions of the rules versus the actual athleticism on display and technique by the athletes. And I would kind of much rather see more matches when we're talking about that than like features of the rule set. So moving on, we have Annabelle Lopez versus Paige Borras. Paige is down. Yeah, Paige changed weight classes here, didn't she?
She did. She did.
Is that her last name?
Yeah, it's Paige Yvette Borras.
Oh, I thought it was always Paige Yvette. I never knew her middle.
No,
her
Yvette's
last
like
name.
Yvette's a middle name.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
This is
but
a,
I
this
think
is
she
the first
goes.
for me.
I think she goes by Paige Yvette.
She does.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Borras is her actual last name, and then
I might have known this.
and then she's engaged to
Sloan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Clymer, maybe.
Paige Clymer.
Maybe.
Oh, that'd be cute.
Maybe once they get married. Who knows? Maybe she takes his name. Maybe she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Annabelle wins this by advantage. Paige is coming down from super heavy into heavyweight. Again, makes it to the finals, but
Takes out Mitrovic.
yeah, who's a returning champion.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Mitrovic, who looked really good. I haven't had a chance to see Paige's match, but I really like Mitrovic's game, and so I'm curious how those two lined up.
Mitrovic always looks really angry.
Dude, I love it.
She has like this angry face on all this. She has like the little bow and just like angry.
I love it. She has one of my most intense moments I've ever seen in jiu-jitsu. It was her and another competitor, and they were waiting for the match to start. It was like 2 minutes of them like from distance, just
it was
hard.
That was trials.
Yes.
And it was
I don't remember what match it was.
I think it was her and
was it Leve?
Yeah, I think it was her and Leve.
It was just
and they
death stare
and they were like staring at each other, and they both had like
it was
I will
super
kill you
intense.
face
I
on.
loved it. It was like I love that intensity. But again, so for Paige to take out Mitrovic, who's the returning champion, is very impressive. I haven't seen that match yet. I will definitely go and catch that match. But Annabelle does win this one in the finals by advantage. But again, a big showing for Paige, and congrats to Annabelle Lopez for taking the title here. Next one, we have super heavy. We have Gabriela Pisana versus Mayra Ribeiro, and a closeout win.
Well, I don't know if it was a closeout or not. No one really knew what happened. All we know is that they brought both of them up, and then they raised Gabriela's hand, and they didn't say anything. And they're not from the same team. So I don't know if
injury walkover or like
it could have been something like that.
Walkover win of some sort.
Yeah.
Notable.
Or maybe it was I don't want to
fight. I don't want to fight Gabby Pisana, man. I don't want to be her first Nogi world title.
Well, the whole bracket was like 3 people.
Yeah. Again, this is Pisana's first foray into Nogi for IBJJF, so it is really impressive. I don't know. Did she get points earlier to come into this, or because she's a gi world title told her?
I thought this was her debut.
I thought this was as well, but usually you need points. Maybe you get an exception or something.
Maybe she gets an exception because she's
Gabby Pisana.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, we'll let you come in. We'll let you in. Because it's like you have a bunch of world titles in the gi. Like, we'll let you run it.
Yeah.
In the finals match, we have Gabby Pisana versus Brianna St. Marie. She finishes Brianna with an ankle lock that was, again, technique and credit where credit is due. Pisana is a strong lady, and Brianna is 4 weight classes below her, and Pisana showed her, this is technique, this is strength here. The ankle lock was a belly down to the side, outside ankle lock.
Yeah.
This is only an ankle lock that you get if you can just boot through someone's leg, and Pisana can do that because she is extremely strong and has a crazy grip from like the types of guard that she plays, that low ankle lock grip. And she's able to just belly down with the outside leg kind of trapped between the mat and her knee. This is absolutely not something that you ever see when there's size parity, but you got to, and it's open. This is why this is the fun stuff that happens at openweight.
Sometimes you can like use the ground as like your leverage to kind of pull against.
With the way that Pisana did it, you see her just booting down and just turning and just sort of laying on it, not really doing like that in the same way. Again, credit where credit's due. Impressive ankle lock. Brianna is very hard to put away, but when you're 5 weight classes lower, sometimes you can. That absolute is real hard to deal with. So
she's technically the number 1 IBJJF like black female.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And she's 26,000 or 2,600 points. 2,602.5 points.
They're gonna be like, hey, she's like, hey, can I use 30 of those to do worlds? And they're like, we'll let you transfer 30 of them. Or I think is it for Nogi? Is it 30 or is it 50?
30.
Okay, 30 for Nogi. For Gi worlds, it's 80, I think,
for
black belts. But again, it's a more prestigious title. So again, that was the IBJJF 2024 Nogi Worlds. Very interesting weekend. Very curious in the next week who gets promoted to black belt and who we will see running through the IBJJF ranks at the black belt division. Miranda, my voice is starting to die. Do you have any other news for the week or any other outro stuff or things going on?
So we have karate.
We do.
Not karate combat. What is that?
We have more stuff.
What is that called?
Pit submission.
Pit submissions. We have that. It's 2 matches. It's the guy from Philly. What's his name?
Philly Fresh?
No.
Philip Rowe?
No, the guy with the man bun.
Clay Guida?
No. He was in okay, let me look it up.
As I just randomly
He was
guess
in
names.
ADCC. He was a last minute replacement. He's Jersey, but he's like Jersey Philly.
Max Hansen?
No, Jersey Philly. Larger guy. Comes from like a family of pro wrestlers, and we had this conversation. Like, I think I had this conversation with you.
This is definitely a conversation that we've had.
Okay.
Man, I will stall for time
Okay.
while you look up and figure out who this is.
Goto.
Oh, Dashi Goto.
Yeah.
Oh.
He comes
He's from a whole family of pro wrestlers?
pro
Okay, this is not a
wrestlers.
conversation we had.
Okay.
Dude, I like watching Goto.
He comes from a family of pro wrestlers.
Oh, he's East Coast? He is close to us, isn't he?
He's Philly.
Yeah, he's Philly and Jersey. Okay,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I like watching him compete. He has a really interesting game.
Yeah, he goes against Roosevelt Souza.
Oh, that'll actually be really
on
fun.
Thursday. It'll be on YouTube. So
that is
great.
absolutely worth a watch here. That's a really tough match for Dashi, because Roosevelt has just looked phenomenal. This again, other than the semifinals match here, but
and we have Alexandre Robinho Jesus, which is the guy who just won Worlds, right? Robinho. Yeah, that's the guy who just won Worlds.
Okay.
Right. Alexander De Jesus in middleweight, right?
Oh, it is him.
It's
Look at
him
that.
versus Michael Sands.
Oh, Michael Sands. Okay.
So
it'd be fun. Again, the Roosevelt and Dashi Goto match is it'll be super fun, especially with the increased pacing that we're seeing from Roosevelt, and it's in the pit.
Yeah.
In the pit, this should be a lot of fun. So we'll cover that next week. I think that's all I got.
I think that's it. They announced some Polaris matches. We get
I'm so excited for
Polish
those.
Mateus versus Joseph Chen,
which is going to be really, really good. I think that might be a rematch.
They're 1-1 because
okay, that's what it was.
Mateus broke Joseph's foot, and then Joseph won against him.
Shazinski?
Huh?
No, not Machulewicz. I had Mateus Machulewicz in my head. Okay,
no,
Shazinski. Yeah.
Polish Mateus.
In the first trials.
They're both Polish Mateus, aren't they?
Yes, that's the confusing piece, and I keep referring to them all as Polish Mateus. So, Polish Mateus.
The little one.
Mateus Shazinski.
Yeah. Shazinski.
Who's got that dope ankle lock, the shotgun ankle lock that he was killing everyone with.
He broke Joseph's foot.
In like 2022.
A few years ago.
I think 2022 trials, he broke Chen's foot. Might have been I think it was European trials 22. And then in the next one,
Joseph beats him.
He beats him in the quarters, I think, because he had quarters. Then he had Langacker, and then he had Taza.
They may have gone against each other in other times too, but they're the 2 times that
those are the 2
ADCC
times that are of note, and there's history there, so that's good. Again, Polaris has a bunch of matches. We will preview that. I think it's December 18th, it's January 18th or something.
Possibly
something like that. It's coming up.
Yeah, we also have Marcelo.
Oh yeah, that's coming up too versus Imanari.
Yeah.
So we'll preview that as we get closer. That'll be fun to preview as well.
Yeah.
We also have end of the year. If you have matches of the year, athletes of the year, other big highlight moments of the year, shoot them to us. We're gonna do our end of the year show coming up here, probably beginning of the year, because we actually have stuff we're running this next couple of weeks. But that's it. I have nothing else more. Anything else?
Nope. You can comment on things.
Yeah.
Make sure you remind people to comment.
Oh yeah, like, comment, subscribe.
Yes.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff that we
even
don't
though we're
talk
at
about
the end of the show. I should have put this an hour and a half earlier.
It doesn't matter. You can talk to us. We'll talk back.
If you've made it this far on the show, we really appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Share it with someone in your gym. That's usually how we grow the show the most. We really appreciate it. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Rewind. See you on the mat, wherever it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.